Hello, everyone. My name is Nipul Choksi. I'm VP of Marketing here at Dun & Bradstreet, and I'm really excited to have you guys here today for our session on how BMC creates revenue success in a digital-first world. A couple of weeks ago, McKinsey published a study where they found that in the last 3 months, we've experienced over 10 years of digital transformation, 10 years worth of digital transformation. So that's quite an acceleration indeed in terms of how, as marketers, we need to be thinking about how to best engage with our buyers in a more optimal way. And so a key part of that equation is how do you actually structure your operations and how do you structure the technology that you need so that you can engage buyers in a more relevant way, so that you can engage buyers with more insights that are timely and designed to get their attention. And so with that, I'm really excited to turn it over to Marina Chabot. I've known Marina for quite a while now, and she's one of the greats when it comes to analytics and operations, having run these operations at large companies like CDW and now at BMC Software. And she's going to walk you through the BMC story of how they think about engaging buyers in this new digital-first world. Marina?
Thanks, Nipul. I'm excited to be a part of this, this session and hopefully share some experience with all of you. So before I jump into our journey, I want to share a little bit more about BMC. So BMC, we are a global IT enterprise software company. We have been around for 40 years. And our focus is supporting over 80% of Fortune 100 and 500 companies, particularly in the space of service management, automation, and mainframe product development. So when Nipul asked me to talk about digital transformation and revenue acceleration, the analogy that came to my mind is about a life-changing experience that I recently went through. And the analogy goes like this. So we used to have a very well-trained 13-year-old golden retriever. And we spent a lot of years in love and building up this dog. And then as she passed, we got another golden retriever, Roscoe. And as you can imagine, starting over again with a new golden puppy, it's life-changing. After having 13 years of really a well-trained dog, it involves building new disciplines, building new skills. And really, it's also just an exciting time to try new things and evolve with our new puppy. And that's really maybe a personal analogy, but how I think about our journey at BMC and how we've evolved from really moving from more traditional targeting and analytics and demand generation to really having a more sophisticated AI-driven focus on better targeting across all of our channels. So I'm going to share a little bit more about our journey. So we really, over the last 2 years, have evolved from, as I mentioned, moving from a traditional demand generation strategy to really having a stronger focus on ABM and really everything that comes with it. One is we wanted to have a strong customer data platform that really pulls together our first-party data as well as our third-party data to enable rapid decision-making for use in segmentation and prioritization. We also wanted to use that information to build more sophisticated audiences, both at the account or company level, but also marry that with contact persona information. And then, more importantly, we wanted to take all this information and really have a more holistic message to our customers and prospects across their buying journey, whether they're engaging on the digital side or they're on our website or they're attending our events or engaging with our demand generation content to even our sellers. We wanted to have a consistent segmentation and audience that we could use across all of our channels. And then, of course, metrics and having a very consistent and holistic approach of how we measure all these different programs across the board. So I'm going to get a little bit more into our process and share with you. You can see on this view here, we have a lot of constituents, and this transformative initiative really touches a lot of different functions. From our core central marketing, and you can see the goals that we focused on within marketing, but it also focuses on, key areas within marketing, like how do we drive better quality leads? How do we focus on optimizing our campaigns? How do we work with our field marketers or our ABM program leads to build the best programs in market in alignment with sales? And then moving on to our sales constituents with our business development reps or our qualification teams on making sure that they're working on the most qualified leads to build strong opportunities. And then for our product account managers to have really quality opportunities given to them so that they can shorten the velocity to close a deal, but also improve the deal size. So our focus as we went down this transformation journey was really to address all these different functions and all the different goals and the use cases within. So I'm going to get a little bit more, and what you'll see here on this slide here, there's actually really, I guess I would say, kind of a step zero, but I'm going to walk through each of these steps in a bit more detail in the upcoming slides. But our very first step, which I'll call step zero in the context of this process, was to get our data in order, right? So before you start to think about bringing on a sophisticated technology stack, it's very important to have your data in good shape. Whether you have a data warehouse or a data lake, is having a centralized view into your marketing automation platform data, your CRM data, or your clickstream data, and we had that. We had that at BMC, and we focused some time on building out that integrated data environment first. And then we focused on rationalizing the tech stack. So what are the technologies and tools that we needed to be able to build predictive AI, to bring in enriched third-party data around buyer intent, to better identify personas, to be able to push this data and integrate it across multiple channels and APIs across multiple platforms. And that really is that tech stack, and I'll show you a bit more around that. And then it's moving into how do you take all this data and build the right audiences, build that right segmentation, and more sophisticated segmentation than you've traditionally been able to do, and start to deploy that segmentation omni-channel. And then the fourth piece in here is having this 360-degree view, which is really important around enablement, transparency, and visibility. We weren't just doing this to create this sophisticated segmentation, but we needed to enable our marketers to understand how to use it so they could optimize their programs and continue to evaluate performance and improve results. But even more importantly, we wanted to make sure our sellers were very clear on the methodologies, how it could improve their selling process, and how to be more effective in the strategies that they deploy. And then the last one is measurement. And I'll talk about that at the end of this, is how we put it all together in terms of our approach of how we measure if this was successful or not. So I'm going to speak next about all of these in a bit more detail. So starting with the tech stack. So as I mentioned, it's not about just bringing on a plethora of technology. There really is a step where you should rationalize and think about, what do you already have? What's the role that each of these technologies plays in your kind of your marketing deployment and your transformation, your customer journey, and then filling in the gaps. So you can see here, there's a few pieces that we cover here. One is just the process and the data that we went through. We had internal segmentation already at BMC. We wanted to couple that with third-party data. So we build predictive models to build and enhance and prioritize fit. We layered that on with third-party buyer intent, so browsing behavior. And we also married that with additional first-party data to have a view into engagement. So what are these customers doing with our assets? And you can see on the right-hand side here, we had a variety of technologies. And more importantly, these technologies were very integrated. So we have Eloqua as our marketing automation platform. We have Salesforce as our CRM. And we didn't have just a single player for ABM. We had a variety of technologies that serve different purposes across the customer journey. And we use these different partners to deploy different strategies, as well as across different channels. So I'm going to get a little bit more into the AI development. So when we paused and we said we wanted to build predictive models, the very first thing that we did is we needed to think about the use cases. What are the actual goals that we have based on the models that we want to build? And so you can see here as examples, these are the 4 different model use cases that we had in which we built out predictive models. So for each of our core product technologies, we had cross-sell models, prospect, win-back, and in many cases, we overlaid more of a competitive lens using third-party technology profile data. So we can say they're not only a good fit for BMC technology, but they have a competitive installed product. So that was the starting point, and really thinking and planning around what are the use cases in which you want to build models. The second step that we went through is we partnered with D&B and Lattice to essentially leverage their sophisticated segmentation platform to bring all of our own first-party data that you see on the left here and marry that with the D&B data cloud. And that allowed us to have a really enriched, sophisticated environment upon which to build models and to build segmentation. And that's what we did next. We used those use cases around cross-sell, prospect, and win-back to build segments and audiences across each of our portfolio products. And then we focused on the activation step and really focusing on what are the key channels in which we go to market and really thinking about our integrated campaign approach and using a consistent audience across multiple channels that were part of an integrated campaign and going to market. For those of you that may not be completely familiar with modeling methodology, I'll just very briefly describe how we used the AI within D&B Lattice. So this is just a simple example of one of the models that we build. And if we didn't have any predictive capabilities, you may just have a large pool of customers that you're going after that don't have your product today. And you're using maybe simple business rules or a salesperson intuition or information that they have to be able to prioritize where to start. But by using some of the predictive and AI modeling capabilities that married our first party data with the D&B Lattice cloud, we were able to stratify the audience and prioritize it. So you can see here, if we simply focused on these top almost 200 accounts, we could see an 8 times higher likelihood of them buying our technology than if we had no model or random selection. So there's a lot of power in prioritization and focusing on those targets that have a higher fit and a higher likelihood of converting. So that was kind of the first leg of the stool, if you will. The second leg of the stool was intent. So not only did the customer have the right profile to buy our technology, but we also married that with looking at keywords in the market that companies are researching. I think many of us have heard the kind of the key phrase that a lot of companies are well into the buying cycle before they even engage with the seller. Well, this really addresses that. This allows us to use third-party research behavior of what companies are researching in the market and allowing us to look at when they have spikes in their research behavior and use that as a leading indicator of buyer intent, right, as an interest to buy. So we basically married these two elements, high fit plus high intent, to create our audiences. So in summary, I covered the predictive AI and analytics use case, and we really use this to focus on how do we better our demand generation process, how do we use this to really launch ABM and prioritize accounts within ABM. I'll talk a bit more about how we use this within advertising, and then finally within sales prioritization as well. So our process around how we use this within our demand and ABM process is we had internal segmentation. We go through an annual planning process where we classify our accounts based on expected spend, the size of their company, their IT wallet, right? And we put them into designations. Well, we took that internal segmentation and we married that with what I showed you so far. We looked at the fit data, we looked at the intent data, and their previous engagement and activity data, and we used all of that to be able to create audiences. And then we have our strategic planning process where we think about our campaigns, our go-to-market, and we push those audiences through our campaigns. And we didn't just focus on the account level information, but we also coupled that with persona level information. So not only could we identify the right company to target, but also the right person within the organization whose persona fit the right product that we're trying to go to market with. And we use this approach not only for our demand targeting that we use for our email outbound campaigns, our email nurturing campaigns, but we also use this approach in our ABM program development. So that kind of more one-to-one or one-to-few approach of really working with our sales organization and building out really customized programs to our customers. We also use these same audiences that we used for the demand and the ABM side to fuel our digital programs. So we use technologies that allowed us to take an identified segment audience like demand base, and we pushed those audiences and created very targeted digital banners that addressed the audience based on their fit or their intent information, so that we could reach these customers wherever they were browsing on the web. We used digital, targeted digital and display banners, but we also used social media like LinkedIn to be able to target them in the places where they were doing their research. The last use case is around sales prioritization. So at BMC, we ended up, as a step one, building more of an internal solution of how we exposed visibility and transparency to our sellers. So we essentially built out Tableau dashboards where we took a lot of the sophisticated intelligence that we got from the D&B Lattice platform, as well as other tools that we had, and we packaged them into an easy, simple to use dashboard. And you can see the 6 key elements that we gave visibility. In this particular scenario, this was given to our business development reps, as well as to our product account managers to help them prioritize their day. If they received a lead, they could go into a tool like this and see if the lead, the company for the lead had certain propensity to buy, had certain intent browsing behavior that was surging high in the last week versus the current week versus the last week. And then we also gave them visibility into engagement information. And then you can see we gave them the people to call, right? Not just the company, but who within the organization, their persona, and then we integrate it back so they can navigate back and forth to Salesforce. I'm not going to go through this in too much detail because I've covered this, but when we did the enablement and the training with our sellers, it was very important to address what I called in the course of the training the trifecta. We're never displacing the knowledge that a seller has and the soft skills that they have, but if we can make them even more productive by giving them this trifecta of, these are companies that have a high fit, right? They don't have the product today, but they're demonstrating a high fit based on their company profile or their past buying behavior. That's kind of leg one of the trifecta. They're exhibiting behavior, they're researching certain topics very recently in the market that may be an indication of their readiness to buy. And then thirdly, they're engaging with existing BMC content that is another leading indicator of their research and their interest. So these are 3 examples of engagement metrics that we looked at. Did they come to specific parts of our website and browse certain product pages? Did they complete a gated form for one of our assets? Or did they attend one of our events in the last time period for a specific product line? So that trifecta was the fit, the intent, and the engagement. So in summary, I feel that we followed really these 6 pillars of success that really helped us to accelerate our revenue at BMC. We started off the process by really with this planning stage, is working collaboratively across marketing and sales to really think about what are the use cases that we want to go to market with, what are those customer lifecycle stages, and for the campaigns that we're going to be going to market with, how do we think about aligning the right segments and the right audiences to those campaigns. So that's the plan stage. So then we as an analytics team took that planning information and started to think about the model development and bringing in all the right data that we had from a first party perspective, from a third party perspective, and partnering with D&B Lattice. And we started to build the models, and we evaluated the models and built out the best performing models within the D&B Lattice platform. Then we use these models as well as other third party and first party data to be able to create these audiences. And that's some of the areas where you may want to rationalize a tool set that allows you the flexibility to build really sophisticated segments and audiences that you can build in one platform, but push them out from an execution perspective to multiple channels. And that's what we did. We focused on building criteria at an account level, at a contact level, and we defined and really managed the governance around these segments in a single platform. And then we pushed them across multiple channels. Some of the pushes were more automated, some of them were more manual pushes, but effectively we were able to use a single segment audience and push them omni-channel so we could have a more integrated campaign touch strategy. Then I talked about enablement. It's very important not to forget this step, which is once you're building this process, right, you have that cross-functional working team that you're engaging with, but you need to create formal documentation around enablement to educate your marketers and your sales staff on the benefits of this process, how to use it on a going forward basis, and how to measure performance. And then lastly, we have a variety of lead and pipeline and campaign performance dashboards that we use internally at BMC. But in addition to just the standard metrics that many of us look at on a day-to-day basis, what was really important as a part of this effort is having a test and control methodology to truly understand the effectiveness of having these new segments and audiences being deployed versus the legacy, the business as usual prior ways in which you may have gone to market. So that's a recommended approach that you should consider. It doesn't have to run, infinitely, but it's something that when you're first launching a program like this, that you should develop test and control segments so that you can understand the incrementality of these programs. So hopefully you've taken something away from the session today, but it has been a journey from going from a 13-year-old golden retriever to a 4.5-month-old puppy, but it's been an exciting journey and we've learned a lot along the way. And I want to highlight some of the key learnings that we've had as an organization. Step one, right? Making sure that you have the right data foundation. Not all companies have a really sophisticated data environment, but this is where you should focus on getting your internal data as clean as possible, or partner with companies like a D&B Lattice that can help you do that. So it's getting your data right, but also starting to marry that with really good third-party data so you can enrich it, particularly in the space of prospects where you may not have a lot of information about those companies. Then it's that planning stage, right? So focusing on what are those use cases and how do you want to align that to your go-to-market or your campaigns, and aligning on that set of rules or scenarios in which you want to build your audiences. Also evaluating your tech stack, right? It's not about bringing on a million technologies. There's a lot in the marketplace right now, but it's bringing on the right technologies that solve the very specific use cases and really rationalizing that tech stack. And when you bring it on, making sure that it's really well integrated so that you can seamlessly push data in and out of different platforms so that you can act on this information more real time and more seamlessly, and you can activate things in a more automated manner. Focusing on measurement, right? At least in the onset of your programs, having a very clear point of view on test and control so that you can report back to your business leaders the incremental value of deploying a solution like this, particularly as you're bringing on a variety of different technology tools. You want to rationalize the investment in that new technology and that data and make sure that you have a strong ROI business case. And then focusing on just more internal enablement, right? Building visibility with your sales organization, building enablement for your marketers so that they can make sure that they understand the process and how to use these new audiences across their campaigns. The sixth one here is really more internal management, but you can imagine this can get a little bit out of hand when everyone, is going in and building segments. So we chose to take a very pragmatic approach and have a single team taking the requirements from the business, building out the models, building out the segments, and documentation around that. So we had good governance out the gate. But you do have to think about how to scale that, so it's not maybe within a single team. And then, it's about account prioritization. It's about creating better audiences. But at the end of the day, all of this doesn't matter if we're not improving our pipeline. And so we focused on making sure that we continued to optimize our audiences, optimize our models. And we would look to see what was performing, what wasn't performing, and went back and revisited the whole process just to make sure that we continue to iterate and improve. So hopefully that gives you a good flavor as to the BMC journey, and I'll pass it back to Nipul for questions.
Awesome, thanks, Marina. Some great insights indeed, especially like your comments around the testing and iterations. And so I think what we'll do now is look at some of the questions that are coming in and kind of enter the Q&A portion of this session.